Um, Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Cherie, and we're Technomadia, and we currently live in a bus.
Yes, we are inside our bus right now, coming to you live. If it happens to be, what day is today?
Today, October 11th?
October 11th, I think.
8
If
p.m.
it's October 11th, if you're watching this October 11th, this is live. If it's not October 11th, it's a recording. But we love interacting live with an audience. And
this is our live video chat series. If you're catching the archive, this is our longer form format. So do be prepared that this video will be long. We do have shorter videos as well.
And what is today's topic?
This evening we're going to be talking about RVing in the Northeast.
Scary. Oh my gosh.
We thought it was going to be scary. That's why we're tackling this topic. Is we've been on the road now 10 years, and this is our first time really doing the Northeast.
And it's not that we were really afraid of the Northeast and stuff.
We
well, okay, I'll drive anywhere. But there's this conventional wisdom we've always heard. It's like, oh my God, the Northeast, or I went there and it was horrible and the scary and the roads and the people and the traffic and
the tolls and
and a lot of times we hear from people who didn't actually go. It's always like second or third hand, and they're like this big hubbub in the RV world of like, RVing in the Northeast is really difficult. And we've been on the road for 10 years. We just haven't been up this way yet.
We never made it a priority.
Yeah, it wasn't a priority. It was, it's like, oh, it's just going to be crowded and congested, and we didn't know there was so much to see and to do, and we had so much other stuff to see that this was always well off our route. So we never even really routed further north in Philadelphia. But this year we made it a goal partially because of the escapees.
Yeah, so the escapees held their escapade in July in northern Vermont, and that probably made the Northeast a bucket list item for a lot of RVers to come to that event who hadn't been up here before. And so we kind of used that as that's our target for this year, and it gives us the good excuse to finally do it. And I'm so glad we did, because
it was wonderful, and most of the fears were overblown. Not all of them.
So let's first talk about what are the fears.
Okay.
I mean, when we announced that we're coming up here, I think it was in March, I actually stated a few of the concerns that we had coming up here, and that we had heard about tolls being a problem,
being atrocious.
Could be very atrocious, very scary. Tight roads, low clearances, expensive campgrounds, tightly packed campgrounds, lots of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And then my family's from the Northeast. My mother grew up in Connecticut. My father was from Pennsylvania. All my family was up here, and most of my visits in this area for kids was always to what I consider city life. Mm-hmm. Along the coast in southern Connecticut, Boston, and those sorts of places, I'd really never experienced outside of that. So I had this vision that it was
one big giant suburban / city. I've done a little bit more up here. My parents used to have a place in more rural Connecticut, so I knew that Connecticut actually had hills and some stuff, but I knew the roads were small and there was a lot of traffic, and it's like I didn't know there was a lot of great places to RV and see. And for us, this was also the part of the country that we'd done a lot of individual travel, but this is where we're going to get our 50th state for both of us,
which was Rhode Island.
I'd never been up into Maine and up into New Hampshire and Vermont and stuff like that, so this was a really let's get these off the list and do it. So that was the fears. The hopes were...
But the one thing we expected was great internet. And we'll talk about that.
And it wasn't.
So, first of all, what is the Northeast? So, apparently, I'm not the only one who didn't know exactly where the Northeast...
What officially defines it?
So, this is from Wikipedia. I'll bring this up. So, the dark is New England, and the mid-range is what is officially, these two colors together is what the U.S. Census Bureau considers to be New England. The Northeast. The Northeast.
New England is New England.
Yes, that is the confusing part. New England and the Northeast are two different things. And then the lighter color ones are some other definitions of the Northeast. So for the purposes of this video, when we're talking about the Northeast, we're going to be talking about New Jersey and Pennsylvania and above. So
and we went to all of these states this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then I posted this in the post thing, and I'll make sure this gets overlaid. This is a map of our visits in the Northeast. So these are we made 26 stops since we hit New Jersey on June 18th, and then we officially left New Jersey on October 6th. Yes, I did the math before I did this. It was 109 nights that we ended up spending in the Northeast. So we feel we got a fairly good representative sample. We certainly didn't do everything.
We barely scratched the surface.
Barely scratched the
so
surface.
much more to see.
But a fairly good representative sample. So if you would like to refer to that chart, it is in the post section. And for those doing the archive, there will be a dedicated blog post that goes along with this chat as well. So let's talk about I think the ones that are on most people's list is the roads up here.
Right. The roads are either big tolls and expensive or tiny, twisty, and you're going to run across, I think every RVer has seen some of the videos online of RVs and trucks going through low clearance bridges in the Northeast and just having their toll tops ripped off. There's like a whole YouTube channel dedicated to this. And it's every RVer's nightmare. It's like, I'm going to drive down a road and next thing I know,
lose my air conditioners, my antennas.
Or my entire roof. And it does happen to some people, but now the key is do your homework. Do a lot of homework first.
I think that's one of the things we found very different about being up in the Northeast. Is it totally possible to RV up here?
Yes.
It is totally possible. But it's not like when you're out west where you pretty much know, besides grades and things like that, that you don't have to worry about low clearances, tight turns, and things like that.
Yeah, so the roads a lot of the roads in the Northeast go back to older than our country. They're roads that were laid out in the pre-revolutionary time when, for some reason, like George Washington didn't drive a Class A. I didn't know. I would have assumed when he retired he would have set off cruising New England in a big Class A pulled by horses, but no, apparently the roads were not designed for this in mind, and so
live with him.
But if you do a little bit of homework first, clearly the civilization has evolved here. The trucks deliver things. People drive through these roads all the time. You got to do a little homework first, particularly if you've got a bigger RV.
And for those who aren't aware, we drive a 35-foot bus, or Class A.
And we tow a Mini Cooper dinghy, and just pretty big. There were several times this summer that I was like, I'm really glad we're not a wider body. We're only 8 feet wide, not like most RVs that are 8.5 now. And 35 feet, I'm glad we're not 45 feet. But even with a bigger rig, it definitely can be done. It's just a matter of how much homework you want to do in advance. And by homework, I mean, scout your route. Don't, particularly out west, a lot of times I'll just get in the morning, punch something into the GPS, and just start driving. Whatever way it says to turn, I turn. If you do that in the Northeast, it'll have you going some scary roads.
There's so many roads up here that we always run 3 GPSs at once. So
and they're voting.
They're voting. So we have a dedicated RV GPS. We're using the Garmin 660, something like that. 660. And then we also run one iPhone with Google Maps, one iPhone with Apple Maps. We have the location set into all 3. And if all 3 agree, we go. Good to go.
This is good. This is really good. Up in the Northeast, they never agree.
Because there's so many different routes to take up here. There's lots of roads.
Yeah, so our Garmin RV GPS is supposed to take into account low clearances and RV-friendly roads and stuff. I've certainly discovered plenty of times up here where its database is wrong or inaccurate or missing data, but at least it has somewhat of one. Google and Apple both take into account traffic and current road conditions and stuff like that.
But not RVs or trucks.
But they don't have any concept of an RV, so they might try and steer you down a parkway. And parkways up in the Northeast are roads that are designed for cars, and it's actually illegal to take anything else on them, and they have clearances designed for cars. You will not make it if
now most of these roads, they're very well marked. That's one thing we found is if there was a low clearance coming up, there was usually plenty of warning in most cases. If there was restrictions, like you can't drive with your propane on going over a bridge, that was well marked in advance. Tolls, however...
But now here's the catch. The signs might be there in advance, but there might not be any
alternative
or way for you to pull over, or you're like, great, there's a low clearance. Should I go left? Should I go right? What do I do? So this is where don't just sit down, punch in on your GPS where you want to go and follow it. Do your homework, do the route in advance, bring it up on all. Really do compare Google Maps, Apple Maps, any other mapping
Copilot,
software,
Waze, anything else that you use in your navigating.
And then start looking up also low clearances. Like the Allstays app has a pretty good database of low clearance bridges, tunnels, and stuff like that. So scouting ahead and looking for them, and then also just looking on the maps for railroads, because most of, when the railroads were built through the Northeast, they weren't really thinking of truck traffic and big traffic to get underneath them. So if you're seeing, wait, that on the map I see a railroad line crossing here, and this is, if you're on an interstate or a major state highway, you're pretty fine. But if you're like taking a cross road from one place to another, that's when you want to start doing a little homework. And one of the best ways to do homework is Google Street View. So anytime we had a question, especially when we're doing surface streets, so navigating within a city, perhaps to get to our campground, or we're going to go visit somebody. So like here is an Elks Club that we are going to be staying at in Groton, Connecticut, and it had train tracks near it, and I was like, this could be dicey. And I went on Street View because it was not marked in the low clearance database, because this is a bit of a local road. And where did that go? The other way. Did I walk the wrong way down the street? Uh-huh. Okay, backwards. I just walked past the low clearance sign. Go. There it is. There's the low clearance sign.
No one's seeing what you're doing.
I got to see the sign. I clicked on it there. You see that 14 feet, 10 inches. And that was very reassuring to see that. Oh, 14 feet, 10 inches, we can get under that. That's not a problem. And you can see the railroad bridge just down the road there. And that would have been really dicey. And just one intersection away, the same bridge, actually the route our GPS...
The same railroad line.
The route our GPS was trying to send us under was just 12 feet, and that would have taken out our antenna. And actually, the next one up was 10'6".
No way we're getting out of that. Yeah, our clearance is up to the top of our air conditioners is 11.3, but we are right now testing the new Wilson 4G OTR antenna, the new trucker antenna, which that monster puts us up to 12 feet.
Yes. So know how high you are, so you've got that confidence. If you've not been measured, look up your specs on your rig, know your heights. And then just do your homework, and so you've got the confidence of, like, what are the roads you're going to be doing. Have your co-pilot know what the turns are, and maybe always even have a plan B, because...
That was one thing, is I was always looking at being extra eyes, looking for signs that may indicate this may not be RV friendly, and I was looking around for other alternate routes in case... It's really easy to make a wrong turn.
Or to miss a turn.
On these small streets. GPSs sometimes don't keep up with as fast as the streets are coming along. Yeah. And so it's not uncommon. It's hard sometimes if you're at a 5-way intersection. Which way are you going?
And particularly if you've got Google, Garmin, and Apple all saying 3 different things. And that's where it comes down to the ultimate tiebreaker is local knowledge.
And so if we were routing to a campground, we would always look to see if they had special instructions. A lot of them put it on their websites to say, hey, don't come this way. There's a low clearance pass. Come this way. And most of the time that worked really well. One case, however, we booked at a state park in Pennsylvania. They had instructions, even on the reservation confirmation form that they sent us, of how to get there in an RV, but all those roads were closed for construction. No indication whatsoever. They had not updated their instructions. And we found the Pennsylvania roads to be some of the most poorly marked, because we ended up making an exit on a highway that didn't tell you that you couldn't get back on the highway that way, and you had to turn around. So we did like a 20-mile detour.
That was actually a disaster. And the one thing you don't think a lot about in the Northeast, maybe in Pennsylvania and New York you do, is you don't think of really steep grades. You think of steep grades in the Rockies and out west, but there's actually some really, really steep roads out east. And we have like one road where we're going about 7 miles an hour grinding up this road because actually it's the Pennsylvania State Park that sent us to the wrong route. We're coming in the back way.
What that was, it was such a back road. It's not marked on Allstays. It's not marked in the RV GPSs.
And because it was a sudden detour, I hadn't had a chance to use like the program's En route we used to try and do a little graph of routes in advance to find out where the steep grades are. So in the Northeast, be a little wary for that. But if you do your homework, you can do it. And it's not just about the low clearance bridges too. It's also low clearance trees. And one other thing that really kind of caught me by surprise in the Northeast is there's trees everywhere.
Overgrown on the road. You can tell they trim them, because you can go down and you have these inverted L's basically where they cut the trees like a square box over the road.
But particularly roads that aren't heavily truck trafficked, the branches start to sag. And so even if they've been trimmed, if you're going, you have to be very alert about this when you're like, working through the local roads to get to the final campground or through neighborhoods and stuff, is there might be a low branch hanging here. And there was a lot of times we had to go into the opposite lane of traffic, not in heavy trafficked areas. Those usually have had trucks go through them. But we'd have to like go one lane to the other to weave between low-hanging branches. That was actually very common, and that kind of caught me by surprise.
Now, the other concern up in the Northeast is the tolls, and there are a lot more toll roads in the Northeast than I think other parts of the country.
Yeah.
More than we've ever encountered. So what we did is beforehand is we did some searching to see if someone had made an app for that, because we thought about making an app for that some time ago.
That's a lot of data.
It's a lot of work and a lot of data. I figured no one would possibly do this, and it turns out there are 2 apps in the App Store. One is called Toll Smart, and the other one is called Toll Calculator. And we went ahead and purchased both of them. I think they're each like $2.99 in the App Store.
Yeah, and then like particularly they all charge extra per month, or like they have like ongoing fees if you want routing that can be smart enough to
take into account
how many axles you have
so
in
with,
RV pricing.
With RVs, you're often not charged like an automobile.
Not at all.
So some might charge for just being a larger vehicle. When you're towing, we flat tow our Mini Cooper behind the bus, so we technically have 4 axles. Some charge for 4 axles, some charge for 2 vehicles, just hitched together. And the rates can take you by surprise, because you might go to a toll, like we went through one just yesterday, that was $4 for a car, and it was $20 for
a car plus RV towing. Right. So yeah, they really get you for the axle stuff. And in particular, so here's a route, like this is if we drove from where we are.
Toll Smart or Toll Calculator?
This is Toll Smart.
Okay.
This is the one we ended up using the most. And here's from where we are currently now in Delaware. If we'd driven back to where we were in Maine, toll $150.60 to get from here to there by the normal, this is what your GPS will route you on. That's a pretty big, scary amount. But the little dots let you see where those are, where the tolls are hitting you at. And you can find out what's the big one. And this right here is the big one. It's the George Washington Bridge to cross over from New Jersey to New York, right in downtown Manhattan. $84 to cross in an RV.
Going north.
Going north.
Going south, it's free.
Right. So
that was an easy choice on which direction we went up around, because we were debating, do we go to Connecticut first and then come back around, because Vermont was kind of the center point for our summer, right, where the escapade was. So no, we decided we're going up through upstate New York first, over to Vermont, go to Maine, and then come back down to avoid, so that we could do that free toll coming back.
Yes, and that worked out wonderfully. So we avoided the ridiculously expensive crossing the George Washington Bridge.
But then every single morning before we set out, Chris would bring those apps up and look at it, and that would determine what our routing was going to be. We would look to see if there are alternate routes that were RV friendly to the toll roads, and that would show us those.
And oftentimes the alternate routes, they would be like the older roads. They're not necessarily super highways. They're more scenic. They're slower. That's usually how we like to drive. And through most of the Northeast, well, this was a thing that caught us by surprise, is just how rural it was. And so being on these like secondary 2-lane roads was wonderful. But once we got down into the southeast part of the Northeast,
no, we're pay the tolls because we don't want to risk getting accidentally on a parkway or a low clearance.
Yeah. Once you get down in the southeast, where there is no rural left, it is just bumper to bumper. Get me on, and actually the New Jersey Turnpike was a joy to drive. It cost us like $40-something. $33.35 to come from New York down to South Jersey, but it was a joy.
Stress free, and they had nice service plazas to pull off and take a break. So it was cool. One thing we did find up in the Northeast is not all rest areas have pull-through RV parking.
Yeah, kind of surprised us.
So we're used to that in most states, where it's just nice, easy, on and off. Because when you're flat towing a vehicle behind a motorhome, you can't really back
up. You need a pull-through spot.
They had truck spots, but they're all back in, because trucks can back. So we did find, especially in Connecticut, this was a problem in Connecticut, is their rest areas had very few, if any, pull-through spots that could accommodate an RV pulling a car.
Right. And now here's the other thing also, is like when you're getting down to the southeast, northeast, the New York metro area, northern New Jersey, Connecticut, you don't want to, when you're get on the road, you've got your day planned, you're not going to be able to just pick a random exit and get off. A lot of the exits, you're going to be dumped down into surface streets and horrible traffic. So when you get on the freeway, you're make sure you're committed, make sure you know where the rest areas are, and you know where the backup rest area is. If you pull into one and there's no place to stop,
or they're closed.
Or they're closed. When you get down to from basically the end of Connecticut until New Jersey, if you're taking the route through across 95 across the George Washington Bridge, there is no place to stop. You're in that traffic. You're in that craziness. It's actually kind of a pleasant drive.
Especially because it's going slow.
It's true. It is stop and go, even at a lot of times. But it's scenic. It's beautiful. You got the New York skyline. You got this amazing bridge. You're going underneath buildings. It's really a pretty drive. Don't let yourself stress. Just stay in your lane. Don't try to change lanes. Focus on where you need to be and relax. But you can't get off. You're committed until you're all the way into New Jersey.
Right. So as for tolls, using these toll apps that we paid, I think over the summer, maybe $12 for in total, we ended up only spending $47.95 in tolls for our 109 days of traveling in the Northeast.
Yeah. It wasn't bad at all.
Not bad at all.
Feared.
We chose when it made sense to take a toll road because it would just be easier than trying to navigate surface streets on our own. And it worked out really well. I'm pretty pleased with that because you hear horror stories of people coming away with $80, $90 bills per day sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yep. The other one last note I want to make about roads, and we'll move on, is a lot of road construction. You have to keep in mind in the Northeast, and this is true in any northern place that has this thing called winter, is road crews really can only work on the roads in the summer. So all the road construction tends to be very concentrated during the summer months. So especially up in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, there was a lot. It was almost seemed like every 5 or 6 miles there was something going on. And they had good flaggers and systems and things like that. But it was a lot of construction that did slow down travel as well.
One other thing about the roads in Maine, I don't know what it is about Maine, but the roads are kind of like a hump. Maybe it's to help drain the snow or something. So in Maine, it felt like you're driving like this down.
And as
everywhere.
a passenger on this side of it was freaky.
The Maine roads seemed to be like that. They weren't flat. It was just weird.
Crazy. All right.
But still, all doable. It's just do your homework, brace yourself. Plan your day carefully, but actually wasn't too bad to drive the Northeast. Not nearly what we'd heard the horror stories to be.
Yep. All right, campgrounds, number 2. The thing that we had heard up front is campgrounds are expensive, and there's no boondocking. Or free camping like out in national parks and lands. It is very true. There are not many national forests and BLM lands and things like that out in the Northeast.
Not unless you're way up northern Maine.
Northern Maine there is. We ended up, our preferred style of camping is mixing it up. We love state parks, national parks when we can find them. We love boondocking if it's available, and we don't mind an occasional commercial campground. We were able to, I'll go ahead and give you our stats first, and then we'll talk about it. I actually went and did math today. So we stayed in 26 different spots. We did nights in every single of the states in the Northeast, total 109 nights. 8 of those were in our bus garage having maintenance done, preventative maintenance done.
On the way up and the way back. We stopped in our favorite garage in U.S. Coach in New Jersey.
So quote unquote free camping those nights.
Very expensive camping.
At about $1,000 a night. We did 37 nights we managed of true free camping, and that was combining Harvest Hosts, which is staying at vineyards and things like that, using our membership with Harvest Hosts. We did a night at a Cracker Barrel. Yep. It was our first time doing a Cracker Barrel, and that was really nice.
Yeah, actually was.
But most of our nights were gifted to us by blog readers and viewers like yourselves who invited us to come and driveway surf with them.
And we had some wonderful driveway surfing experiences.
And for us, it's not about the free, it's about meeting people and getting to see a local area through a fan's eyes. So those were wonderful. We ended up 38 nights staying in public parks, so state parks and national parks.
Yep.
We did 18 nights in commercial parks. So these are ones that are privately owned, not publicly held. And we did 8 nights in Elks Clubs because we are Elks members.
Yes, and that actually works out great in the Northeast.
Our total expenditure for all 109 days was just about $1,800 for our 3 months, which comes out to about $1,650 per night as an average. So that's not too bad. It's higher than our annual average, which tended to be more like $14 or $15 a night. So it was slightly more expensive for us up there, even with compensating with so much of the free camping. But an even more interesting number is if I take that $1,800 that we spent and divide it by the number of nights we actually paid for camping, which was 64 nights, that averages out to $28 a night, which is significantly more expensive than we pay for camping in other areas of the country. And had we had
a lot of this is for dry camping. You're not getting hookups.
Yep.
A lot of the places we were at. So
Yep. So had we actually had to pay for camping the entire time up there, we would have been over $3,000 for our 3-ish months up there. And had we not had the free camping options, we would have done more Elks Clubs, and we probably would have sought out more boondocking locations.
And more Harvest Hosts.
And Harvest Hosts and things like that.
Yeah.
So for sure, it is pricier up there. And as Chris mentioned, a lot of the campgrounds, especially state parks and national parks, tend to be dry camping. So we were staying up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. All of the Forest Service campgrounds up there are $24 a night for dry camping. And guess what? Up in the Northeast, there's a lot of trees.
Not a lot of solar.
We did find some spots where we could utilize our solar with dry camping, especially in some of the New York state parks we stayed in. But by and large, we were staying in dry camping forested where we could not, our solar, there's no way it was going to keep up with our needs. So we did end up running our generator quite a bit more than we're used to.
Which worked out to be like an hour and a half a week. But that's a lot for us.
More than we're used to.
Yes.
We did not try any traditional boondocking. So like going in the few national forests and lands up here, we did not.
They're not very well suited. If you're talking about the low trees hanging down, they're not going to be trimmed down to let a Class A get through.
We went on free campsites and some of the other websites that we used for finding our boondocking app, and a lot of them were saying 26-foot max. There might be one spot for a 40-footer, but you got to get there early in the day. We just decided it wasn't worth the trouble to try to do it. So we stuck to designated campgrounds for all of our stays, or driveway surfing with friends. You do, when doing with the campgrounds, some of the campgrounds are much older up there, so you do need to be very aware of the space and size of them.
Definitely, we ran into some campgrounds where there was like only 2 or 3 sites that would fit a bigger rig, and you have to do your homework on the campground. Reserve America has pictures and stats and stuff to look up, how the sites are. Look at the satellite maps, try and figure out where things are, and even call ahead if you need to, just to make sure that you'll be able to get in, and the site's level and the site's big enough for you.
And that was a problem, is we were not anticipating the number of hills and mountains in the Northeast. And there were some campgrounds that we'd get to, and sure enough, the spot is perfectly fine for a 35-foot RV if you can get into it. There was one that we stayed in Pennsylvania, Lackawanna State Park, and that spot, we almost could not make the turn because of the way trees and rocks were situated around the spot. So we had to be very careful, and we were able to maneuver in, and it had a drop off getting into it, and it was a tricky spot to get into.
Yeah, and then we watched our neighbors try to get in, and it took them 3 hours before they gave up of trying to back.
So there's some things that even campground pictures and satellite view just don't show you that sort of stuff. So it was a challenge to get into some campgrounds, but on the flip side, we stayed in 3 fairly brand new public campgrounds in our states.
Sites, the newer ones are really well done. They're
really designing for the large RVs that are coming off the line. So in 3 of the public campgrounds, 2 of them in New York State, and one was the new national park in Acadia, the Schoodic Woods Campground. There were sites there. If there were 80-foot RVs, they could accommodate it.
They still had the new campground smell. These are amazing places. Yes. The one ultimate tip, this is good anywhere, but particularly in the Northeast, is plan to arrive with plenty of daylight, just to give yourself ample opportunity to get parked and to swap sites if you need to. And just pulling in here, we're not in the Northeast anymore, Delaware, but the ranger came over and was like, you're not going to be able to get level on that site. Come back to this host.
You're going to need to switch sites.
You're going to need to switch sites.
Sure enough, he was right.
Yep. So yeah.
The other thing that kind of took us by surprise is the amount, how differently pets are treated up here in campgrounds.
Yeah.
Usually,
Papers, please.
most campgrounds around the country are. We've only went into maybe 2 campgrounds that didn't allow pets at all, and no one has ever asked for our rabies vaccination for Kiki. Now, we carry it with us. I mean, we always have it with us. But New York State and Massachusetts, when you check in, if you are...
You need up-to-date papers, and you got to present them.
You have to present them when you check in.
You don't have to have ID for yourself. I mean,
I don't have to prove that I'm not disease-ridden, but my cat, I have to prove that she was vaccinated. Not a problem. And I always keep the papers handy, so it wasn't a problem.
But if you were traveling without your papers, particularly if you were on a
vacation
trip,
or something, that could be a problem.
Could be a very big problem.
And then in Pennsylvania, their state park systems, they actually have pet loops and non-pet loops. And I think some of the other state park systems up this way did as well. So you have to be extra careful when booking your site that if you have a pet, and cats are considered right along with dogs, is you do have to make sure you're booking a site. We're Maryland, not technically in the Northeast for how we're treating it this evening, also has pet loop rules.
Yeah, and sometimes the pet loops, there's one pet loop, and so you might get there, and that pet loop is completely full. The rest of the campground is entirely empty. It's really kind of a warped system.
So you get a pet loop that's full of animals and dogs, and they get agitated with each other. Whereas sometimes I think it's better to spread them out so that you don't necessarily have all the dogs concentrated in one area and constantly getting each other riled up.
Yes.
So it's interesting. Alternatives, like I said, if we hadn't had so many awesome driveway surfing invitations and we could not accept them all, we thank you so much for them. It made our experience in the Northeast just amazing. Is we would have utilized the Elks more and Harvest Host a lot more up here.
And maybe even Boondockers Welcome would be another good resource.
Yep. So definitely, there are ways to save money up here. Just do be prepared that you're going to be paying. I think the lowest campground fee we paid up here was maybe $24 a night. We're paying up to $30 a night for dry camping in New York.
That does feel a little painful, but some of the campgrounds were absolutely beautiful. So at least it compensates that way.
Yep. All right, number 3, internet. We had this, when this vision of what the Northeast is to me, being just all big
urban
cities, back to back, all urban. I thought, that means internet's going to be easy.
We have actually had some of the worst cellular coverage and speeds we've ever had traveling the country, period, up in the Northeast, because the terrain's rugged.
The cities are very spread out. They're we're choosing places in very rural locations.
Yes, exactly. The parks in particular tend not to have had much cell tower build out towards them, and the carriers just haven't really invested in their networks, particularly up in the further Northeast, in the rural Northeast. It was very surprising.
But this worked out really well for us because we had just been shipped a whole bunch of new signal enhancing gear to test out for the website we run, RV Mobile Internet. And, one of our roles there is testing equipment. So we had a new booster, we had new antennas, we had some other equipment that we were testing. And so it gave us a great...
we're like, hey, it's a horrible, crappy signal. This is good. We could spend a day testing antennas. And we were able to get online most places, but our number one rule for mobile internet is redundancy of connections, and that was absolutely essential up in the Northeast.
So just like in so many other areas of the country, Verizon continues to be usually a safe bet. You're probably going to get a usable signal Verizon in most places you go.
But we had a lot of places where Verizon was really disappointing. I mean,
overloaded.
Or overloaded, or just like it's not enough to do a video like this. It's not even not enough to surf happily. You might be online, so that's when we pull out our emergency parachutes, pull the ripcord, and try AT&T, try T-Mobile, try Sprint. Sprint really never worked.
In a few occasions it was usable, but AT&T and T-Mobile both
each
surprisingly
had places where they were the one that if we didn't have them, we would have had to relocate someplace else to be able to get work done.
And having antennas and boosters, one or the other, we test antenna only options and booster options, and it was pretty much required in many of the places we stayed to get a usable signal.
And what's also interesting is, I guess, the Northeast, and particularly up in Maine, U.S. Cellular, which is the carrier, some people know it very well, but it's a regional carrier that covers about a third of the U.S. That's one of their main home turfs, so U.S. Cellular was up there T-Mobile was very absent. Sprint was very absent completely. And Verizon and AT&T were very weak because this is an area that's been dominated by somebody else. Then we get down into New Jersey. It is like T-Mobile territory. It's like T-Mobile is way better than Verizon or AT&T and just kicking butt. So we've kind of experienced all these different little islands of who's better as we travel.
And our Project Fi account actually got some use because it now will use US Cellular along with T-Mobile and Sprint. So we got to test out some Project Fi up here, which was pretty interesting. Okay, we have one more little quick section to go over, and then we will be opening this up to questions and answers. If you have questions for us about RVing in the Northeast or any other nomadic topics, feel free to go ahead and find the chat box and start putting those in there. We have our virtual production assistants, David and Mara, and also Patty, who is kind of shadowing this evening to learn how to do this. They will be copying and pasting those questions over into a shared document so that we can quickly get to those once we pour the wine.
Skimming up and down.
It's awesome. Thank you, guys. You know how much easier that makes it for us. All right. Last section. Please do queue up those questions while we're talking now. How was our overall experience?
I loved it. The Northeast was amazing. It was really beautiful. It was
blew my mind, actually. I did not anticipate. I knew we'd have a good time up here. We always make the best of any situation, but there are places we visited this summer
are gorgeous
that are going to be lasting lifetime memories.
It was actually really an overall fun RVing experience. I'd highly recommend it. And it was kind of amusing. We ran across so many people who apologized for like, oh, you're RVing in the Northeast, you have to put up with all the rude, mean people and stuff. And like,
I didn't encounter a single rude person up in the Northeast.
Actually, other than the people overly apologizing for the other people they assumed he must have run into. It's like, no, actually, people in the Northeast are great.
Maybe it's because we have a cool bus that everyone's friendly to us. I don't know. But we found nothing but overly friendly people. Even drivers were not that bad.
Yeah, I mean the roads. I mean some of the roads, the traffic is horrendous, and the merges are some of the craziest, tightest merges. You've got like 30 feet to accelerate to 70 miles an hour, which our bus cannot do. But for the most part,
people pulled over. And let us
people made space, made gaps. You have to watch out for the few jerks, but. For the most part, actually, even the drivers were considerate up here, which is great.
We'd go into like our Elks Lodge at night and have a drink with the locals, and they were all just
welcoming of travelers and wanting to talk about their local area.
And give us tips, some things to do, and how to get the best experience, where the best pizza was. So and we had so many. I mean, just the number of driveway surfing invitations we had, and the amazing experiences we got getting to know locals was just amazing. But some of the scenery up there, I mean, traveling through the Adirondacks was just amazing.
And the White Mountains.
And Acadia National Park, especially Scudic Peninsula.
Yeah, and I wish our schedule had been shifted like a month behind. If we were
had another month up here.
If we'd had another month, but particularly if we'd been able to be up there later into the fall, to be up in Maine when the fall colors hit.
And travel down with it.
Yes. To follow the fall color south would be great.
I mean, there are so many places we didn't. I mean, we really thought that this summer we'd be able to see all of New England and the Northeast, and then we'd go up into Nova Scotia, and we'd have time to go explore Canada, and we're left with more places we wish we'd been able to see than not.
Yeah,
so
I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
We definitely need more time up here, which is one reason we're really looking forward to the Great Loop, which is our next adventure with boating. If you've been following the blog and what's going on there, because that means we will be getting a lot more time up here on the water. So.
Yes, and traveling slowly.
Much slower.
Yes.
So. Overall, amazing, awesome experience. Thank you, Northeast. Thank you, everyone up in the Northeast, for making this just.
It was a great summer.
It was a fantastic
really great summer.
I think it's one of my favorite summers up here. It has been, and was not nearly as bad as we thought it would be.
No, don't listen to the naysayers. Go drive your RV up there. Just do your homework. Brace yourself.
All right, you pour the wine.
It's wine time. Did you open it yet? No. What is this? This is unlabeled.
Yes, this is unlabeled. So the wine that we're having tonight, I was mentioning these wonderful driveway surfs that we've had. So our blog readers, Fred and Kathy, up in Maine, they are part-time RVers in the winter. We had met them down in Quartzsite last winter. He didn't tell us this in his invitation to us, but he is a winemaker at home. And
oh my gosh.
Kathy doesn't drink, and so he was thrilled to be able to share his wine with us. And we have saved our last bottle Fred. I don't know. He didn't.
He didn't name it, but it was so good.
Was this a Cabernet? I think it was a Cab.
Yeah, it is so good.
It was awesome. So we've saved it as our as we're leaving the Northeast, is to enjoy this wine with you this evening. If you enjoy these video chats, keep in mind we enjoy wine.
And so if you're a winemaker, invite us over.
That's awesome. But if you would like to contribute to our wine fund, we do have a contribution, leave a tip button at the bottom of every page of technomadia.com. And we do love those contributions. We love your thanks and your gratitude. Any way you want to give it, whether it's in words or contributions or just sending us an email every so often. It goes a long way to keep us inspired to come back
to do this, yes.
next month, because we're just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
So, escapers, salute to you.
And to everyone in the Northeast who gave us part of a great summer. Yes.
All right.
Oh,
that's really
I should have opened this a little early to let it breathe, but oh my god, it's so good.
Yes.
Oh wow, he's
right.
an amazing winemaker.
Okay. So we have a bunch of questions
Wow.
already queued
my
up.
gosh.
David's already been on it.
Okay.
All right. Catherine asked, what do you guys use to find locations in the Northeast? We're going to Connecticut next year for a wedding. It seems that campgrounds are sparse up there. So we used all of the same tools that we use for finding campgrounds anywhere else in the country. And we actually have a dedicated video chat that we did about a year or so ago. It's called Finding Campgrounds. And I'll try to remember to put a link into it for the archive. My first go-to is I go on Reserve America. That is where I usually start my search because it will allow me to see campgrounds in a whole area that are open. Mm-hmm. It concentrates on state parks, federally owned parks, and then some of the Encore and KOA parks are also participate in that. But that allows me to check availability for a bunch of campgrounds in an area at once.
And when I'm scouting out an area, just to see what options are, the Allstays app lets you see everything from Walmarts, Elks Clubs, commercial campgrounds, Forest Service campgrounds, basically any type of place you could stop in an RV, Cracker Barrels, all in one thing, as well as low clearances and roads to avoid. So the Allstays app is like the 10 best dollars an RVer can spend. It's
definitely worth it. And Adam keeps it updated and everything. If we're not able to find anything from those, we also use Passport America. So if we're looking for a commercial campground, we'll usually check Passport America to see if there's any 50% off campgrounds available. In this prime season, usually not.
We got a Passport America day. We use Passport
usually
America.
One day during the week, you can find them.
Yeah, so we did use that because that makes the commercial campgrounds a lot more affordable if you just want to get in, dump your tanks and stuff like that. So yeah, Passport America. Very handy.
And then if that all fails, I'll just do a Google search for the area I want to be in and campgrounds. I might check RV park reviews or Campendium, also for campground listings. But I like, since we prefer state parks anyway, we start usually with the Reserve America. All right. Maine Bob, who was one of our Driveway Surf hosts, and he got to try this wine with Fred, so he knows what we're talking about.
Yes.
Did you get an Easy Pass transponder, or do you just pay cash?
So the Easy Pass is the thing that auto pays your tolls as you drive through. It makes it a lot easier in the Northeast and all the states that participate in Easy Pass, and you actually get a substantial discount on some of the tolls if you have it. I planned on trying to find a place to stop and get it and get signed up and everything, but we managed to avoid tolls so much that it ended up really not being an issue. So we ended up not getting it.
I just paid cash.
Yeah. If we were going to do this again, I'd probably do the legwork in advance to get the Easy Pass. That way you don't even have to stress about being in the right toll lane and stuff. It's just automatic. But paying cash was fine, and the extra cost wasn't too bad.
Terry asks, what antenna and booster would you recommend?
That's a big question.
That's a big question, and we run a website called RVmobileinternet.com where we share our antenna and booster reviews. We do have a review center there where you can go and see our top picks. So just go to RVmobileinternet.com/reviews.
Yeah. There's no one universal answer. It all depends on what your personal needs are.
We also have a guide to boosters at RVmobileinternet.com/boosters that goes over how to pick a booster and what some of the features are in it. And we are planning to do a kind of a general video on YouTube soon, so be looking for that. Yep. If you want our in-depth reviews, and we do head-to-head testing, so you can see what the different variations are. That is one of our premium member perks, so we do have a premium membership version to RV Mobile Internet, and that is one of the perks they get our in-depth recommendations and reviews.
But a lot of stuff is free, so just start off checking out RVmobileinternet.com. You'll find more information than anywhere else about boosters.
Melinda asks, what was your favorite place on Mount Desert Island? Mount Desert Island. I always trips me up in Maine. More specifically, did you have a favorite spot in Bar Harbor? We actually did not spend much time in Bar Harbor itself. When we visited the area, we stayed at Narrows 2 Campground, which is in Trenton.
Just on the main line with a view of Mount Desert Island.
Beautiful. But we were there specifically to see Betsy and Nancy of RV A Go-Go, who were work camping there. And we did one day drive around, and that was it. So I can't say that we were there long enough to have formed a favorite. We really, really enjoyed Schoodic Peninsula, though, up north, which we got 5 days to stay there and just fell in love with that.
Schoodic is gorgeous. So yeah, that's the kind of the less traffic side of the Acadia National Park, and it's beautiful.
But what we saw of Mount Desert Island was gorgeous. It was really pretty. But yeah, we were only there for like 2 days, so I don't feel like I can have favorites because we weren't there.
Frida's asking, would satellite work better? I think she's referring to satellite internet. Where all the places with trees, actually satellite would have been very difficult and frustrating.
You have to be able to aim through trees to get to the satellite.
And satellite internet is even more sensitive than satellite TVs to any obstruction, so you'd have to have absolutely no trees, no branches, no nothing between you and the southern sky. So a lot of the places we were in the Northeast, you would have not been able to use satellite, period. Satellite internet is everywhere we were able to get online with cellular just by having multiple carriers, and that works out better than satellite almost anywhere. Go check RV Mobile Internet. We got articles on satellite. It can be done, but it's actually in the Northeast. It probably wouldn't have been super useful.
Seth asks, we mentioned Harvest Hosts. How are other membership benefits up there? Any Escapees co-ops? And I don't think the Escapees has any parks that they own or any of the associated co-ops up here. We did use Passport America a couple times, and would do those during weekdays when we needed to dump our tanks and do a full tank reflush. Yes. We don't really use, we use Harvest Hosts. We do use our Elks membership with a lot of Elks lodges up here, so we could have done a lot of Elks hopping. I'm sure there were Good Sam. We did use our Good Sam discount at one park that we stayed at in Rhode Island. But I don't think the Escapees probably has partner parks with a 10% discount, but I don't think there's any Escapees owned parks up this way.
Yep.
And Seth also wanted to know if we're going to be in Quartzsite or Escapade this year.
We're on the East Coast for the time being right now.
So you might have caught on the blog and on YouTube yesterday is we announced our new plans, which we are getting a boat. And we are going to start doing the Great Loop.
We're not getting rid of the bus.
We're going to be splitting our time between RVing
and boating.
So for the foreseeable future, for at least the next year or two, I think boating and RVing are going to be on the East Coast. Eventually, we'd like to move the bus to the west so we can do winters.
Winters in the west with the RV and summers on the boat on the east.
But this year, again, will be east, and we did the last 2 years out in the west. And amazing. Loved it out there. Steve asked, did we get to Martha's Vineyard? Well, that's a story.
We tried. And we apparently the site that lists the ferry schedule didn't make note that the seasons had changed. And so we got to Martha's Vineyard like 3 days after they changed the ferry to fall schedule. And so the first ferry we went to, we missed. And by the time we got to the second ferry, we got there and they're like, oh yeah, parking 6 miles back up the road. And so we missed that ferry too. So we gave up on Martha's Vineyard after 2 failed ferry attempts.
And yeah, please do keep the questions coming. Lindsay asked, I'm from the Northeast, so I've always assumed $30 a night was normal. What's the average cost per night for a site out west? I mean, it depends. If you're in commercial campgrounds, I would say 25 to 40 is pretty normal across the country. And
it's more in the Northeast than in a lot of the places.
And then,
but
almost everywhere for a nightly rate. Now, you get down into weekly, monthly rates, it gets a lot lower, and that's pretty across the board. For state parks and national parks, where we prefer, like in Florida, we're paying usually 20 to 25, maybe 28, and that's with electric and water. Out west, we do a lot of boondocking for free. Yeah. So, we're used to not paying for camping out west.
Wasn't like New Mexico state parks? Like
it's $14 a night for electric or $10 for dry camping. Yeah. Texas tends to be 20 to 27, or you can dry camping for 12 a night. So yeah, for dry camping spots, we're used to paying under 15 for sure. For electric and hookups, 20 to 25 for state parks. But out west, you can balance it out with lots of amazing free boondocking out on BLM lands.
Yes.
So that balances out. Like we said, is our annual average is usually more around $13 a night. Once we factor in
all the boondocking
and the variety of different places that we stay.
List our apps again.
We have a lot of apps we use.
We use a lot of apps.
But the ones that we used for tolls was Toll Smart and Toll Calculator. We don't use Copilot.
No, the mapping apps, I just alternate between Apple Maps, Google Maps, and our Garmin GPS are the main ones. And then En Route, which lets you do Google Maps, but it gives you the views with the elevation changes. Mm-hmm. So that's very useful.
We use Coverage, which is the app we created that
It's
shows coverage for the carrier, so we can kind of know what we should be trying to, what coverage we might expect at a campground. We use All Stays for finding campgrounds. I also like the U.S. Public Campground Ultimate Project. Too many words, but it lists
Ultimate Campground Project.
Yeah,
or
but
something,
it's it lists all public campgrounds as well.
Yes. And then actually sometimes Google Earth is another one. If you really want to just scope out an area and fly around it and stuff, that's actually a really great way to do a little bit of aerial recon.
All right. Martha says, how is the Helix mattress working out?
It is good.
Yeah, so context is we've been trying out these internet order mattresses that come with a 100-day trial. So they'll come and pick it up if you don't like it and give your money back. We've tried a Lisa and a Purple. And in early August, we got a Helix, which
While we were in Vermont. Yeah, we had it delivered.
And what Helix does is you put in your weight, your sleep preferences, if you like how firm and things like that in there, and then they custom make you a mattress that's blended. And so we did one, and we're on month 2 of it, and so far loving it.
Yeah,
so I think we found our mattress.
I think this one might be one we keep.
Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in a Helix, if you go to our RV gear page on Technomadia, I do have a link to it, and there's a $50 coupon code there, and we also get a $50 Amazon gift certificate if you use it. So
so we recommend the Helix, definitely.
Lindsay asks, where did you go in Vermont?
Burlington.
No, we were the Escapees Escapade was in Essex Junction, just outside Burlington, so we were there. And then the only other stop we really made in Vermont was we stayed up in
Sugarbush at the ski resort.
In Warren, which is near Sugarbush. So we had a blog reader who offered us their land. Well, they were out RVing, so we kind of got this private little spot for a couple weeks.
Yes, they were RVing for the summer, and we got their driveway, and it was amazing. Wonderful spot.
Brett asks, was wondering what the sweet spot is in for your cruising speed for the bus.
Well, yeah. Hey, Brett, great to hear from you. Our bus likes to cruise right around 60 miles an hour. The engine is just purring at that speed. 55 is good, 65 is good. It is really geared right at that 60 miles an hour, though. I have gotten it up to, I think, 71, just keeping up with traffic, and sometimes in the Northeast you're really pushing it a little bit, but loves to go 60. We'll go 60 all day.
All right. Mary asked, did you have a favorite spot in Maryland? Maryland, let's see. So Maryland's not technically in the Northeast, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So
it's north-ish
Maryland.
And east-ish.
So last weekend,
yeah.
Okay, so where have we stayed in Maryland? So last weekend we were in Elk Neck State Park.
And we were there. And
it was torrential downpours.
Torrential downpours as the edges of Matthew came by, so we didn't get to explore it too much. But it seemed like a really beautiful park.
We stayed also at Pocomoke.
And that was also a beautiful park.
I think it's Pomoke. Love that one. That's down on the Delmarva Peninsula. We had a really enjoyable stay there. Just chill. Just great. And tomorrow we move over to Assateague. So we have heard amazing things about it, and we're really looking forward to Assateague.
Broadcast interrupted. Cheek. Did internet go out? Are you still online?
I don't know. How do I tell?
Okay, we're broadcasting again. There was some sort of temporary live stream glitch where it kicked us off, but I think we are back. Okay. Hi, people. Sorry for... It's the internet. Welcome to the internet.
Right. Ellen Alan says, is there a big difference on the gas price between West and Northeast?
New Jersey. Get your fuel in New Jersey.
Best prices. I don't think, I mean, diesel prices, we were paying anywhere between, we paid $2.09 the other day in New Jersey, and I think we paid $2.29 once up in Maine or something like that. I mean, the prices, there wasn't that wide of a swing.
Some of the states, we completely avoided getting fuel in certain states. So you use Gas Buddy and stuff, scout out which states have the lower taxes. New Jersey, apparently, I guess they're about to raise their fuel tax, but right now New Jersey's got ridiculously cheap fuel. So we actually routed back from Pennsylvania into New Jersey to fill up before going up.
So yeah, really Gas Buddy's invaluable for checking ahead.
Because one state to another can vary a lot up here.
Right. Lisa asks, anywhere in the U.S., what are the best apps or websites to find restaurants that have adequate parking? I haven't found any good ones.
Google Maps or Apple Maps Satellite View.
Yeah,
really.
So as far as for RV parking en route is kind of what I'm assuming you're looking for. So if we need to like stop at a grocery store or we want a lunch break or something like that, is we'll usually look ahead at Google Maps, satellite maps, and look and just see if there's parking around there. I wish there would, that's kind of on my wish list for an app to exist, is just not showing overnight RV parking. Just places
that are easy in and out.
For an RV to stay. So where are the tourist places where you can park an RV and go do the tourist things? What things can you do en route with an RV?
Yeah, particularly for Class A's towing tows, where you don't have the option of backing up without having to get out and unhitch and stuff. So if you go down a road that doesn't have a wide enough turnaround, you've got all this jumping through hoops to turn around again.
All right. Angela asks, can we recommend an app for Android that's like your coverage app? How about coverage app for Android?
Hopefully coming soon.
It's
back on the burner, maybe.
Can't really talk about the specifics right now. There's a reason why coverage hasn't been updated recently. And that's our app for showing coverage maps of all the carriers. And we've been wanting to do an Android version for a while. We are hopefully in the next week or two, we will know if this plan is going to go forward. We are working with an Android developer to get it ported, and we're looking at a way of sourcing the maps differently that's going to be a lot more sustainable instead of us having to take a week every couple months to do them. So hopefully in the next couple weeks, we've been working on it really hard over the summer to try to bring all the pieces together. Once they're all together, if it works out, we're going to be able to have the iOS and an Android version out very soon. So that is the goal. Stay tuned on that. We are working in the background on that. Apps have always been kind of a side hobby project for us. And definitely our work with RV Mobile Internet, and I know coverage is kind of related to it, so that's why we're putting so much effort into it. But our work life has been all consuming lately, so the apps, we're finding ways to make it sustainable to keep them going. Is Waze a decent GPS app?
Waze has a huge audience of fans and stuff. Waze is owned by Google, so a lot of the stuff that gets reported in Waze actually shows up in Google Maps. I've only played with Waze a little bit. I've never really gotten hugely into it, but some people love it. So yeah, play with it. I use Google Maps and Apple Maps almost exclusively.
Loretta wants to know, do any apps show RV parks for 45 footers? Most of the apps will list
big rig friendly,
and you kind of have to determine what their definition of big rig is. That's one thing I love about Reserve America is you put in the length of your RV and it shows you availability only for the length of your RV. Now we're 35 foot, so I'm not looking for 45 foot spots. But it is a challenge for us.
I think there's a guide that somebody has put out of parks that really cater to big rigs. But again, that's not been on our radar. Actually, we prefer national parks and state parks and things that are forested. We don't mind if we have to do a little tricky backing sometimes.
Jeff would like to know, do you use most highway or back roads?
I really prefer to drive kind of the blue highways, the older state highways and stuff that are not 4-lane interstates, particularly if they're going through the more back country and stuff. So you get to drive 30 miles without a stop sign, then you got to a few little route through a town, stoplight, you're back 30 miles, and those are my favorite kind of roads, particularly when they're not super congested, and I seek them out. I really try to route by them, and actually those also tend to be non-toll roads, so it works out really well.
Yeah, if we can take back roads. I always love them. Mark wants to know, what do you use when looking for a potential campsite to determine how level the site is? And that is difficult because sometimes, like, because, again, we use Reserve America quite a bit, is sometimes they actually mark how sloped it is. I've only found like maybe 1 or 2 state park systems that do that. I would then go and check, because you're not going to get it on Google Satellite. You really, even if there is a street view available, and there usually isn't for campgrounds, not inside the campground. So even then, it's hard to see what the slant and slope is. So our next step is I will go read campground reviews sometimes before booking a campsite, just to see what other past campers have noted. And some will say, sites for level, or I had leveling difficulty in site 81. Well, then I know I'm not booking site 81 for sure. Now, what does that mean about site 34?
Right. And we carry boards, and and if we get someplace and it's not level, then you just try. That's, again, get there early, so hopefully you can swap and trade spots, because trailers can level a lot easier front to back than motorhomes can. So sometimes they'll actually swap people around and stuff like that, or arrange sites differently.
All right, one last question from Seth, and then we're going to wrap up this video chat. He asked, did you have any problems with mud or soft grounds at campsites?
No different in the Northeast than other places, but
most of the campgrounds we stayed at all either had asphalt or gravel laid. So we didn't have a problem at all in campground. We had one of our driveway surf, which wasn't on a driveway, where when they had just had a lot of rain and they parked us in their side yard, and we did sink down a little bit.
Yeah, so we gunned it on our way out,
and it was
to make
fine.
sure.
It was fine. We got a little concerned. We almost considered putting boards underneath just in case. But they assured us that it used to be an old croquet court, so it was solid underneath.
The house has been in the family for 200 something years, so it's like, okay. But
it wasn't any more of an issue than it was anywhere else in the country. And most of the campgrounds we stayed in, that's why we like sometimes staying in designated campgrounds, is they typically at least have a gravel underneath, so that even if it rains a lot, you're not going to get stuck in the mud. So did not have any problems there. All right. So this wraps up this video chat on RVing in the Northeast. We thank you for joining in with us and toasting you this evening. Thank you especially to Fred and Kathy for the wine this evening.
Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Amazing. And we'll see you next month.